So I'm glad you brought up creativity, because creativity is one of those words that we say a lot, but it actually means two different things, and we sort of blur them together when we talk about it, and AI is going to pull them apart. The creativity process is thinking of new things and then picking the one that you like. And AI won't ever pick the one you like better than you.
AI isn't the future, it's now. And whether you're in HR, sales, operations, or leadership, the choices you make today will determine whether you thrive or get left behind. Welcome to AI, Voice or Victim. I'm Greg Boone, Marketing Executive and AI Series.
And I'm Erica Rooney, author, speaker, and gender equality advocate, and I'm AI curious. And we are here to cut through the noise and show you how to leverage AI in your career, your business, and your brand. In every episode, we will break down real-world use cases and give you AI-driven strategies that you can apply immediately. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? Let's jump in. Dan, welcome to the podcast. I am so pumped to have you here in person.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, for organizing all of this. I'm excited for the conversation today.
Yes. And so for everyone who doesn't know, Dan Chuparkoff flew in from Chicago to be with us in real life. It's where worlds collide. And he is the guru on all things AI. So Dan, I think just for our listeners, it would be really great if you could just give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. I've spent 30 years as a technology leader. I worked at some startups and some big companies like Google and McKinsey and Company. A year and a half ago, I quit to just help people on teams get through this agile transformation that we're all trying to go through right now. So I do this every day. This is my full-time job.
I love it.
I envy it.
So we've got AI at the forefront. Yep. And what Greg and I are trying to do right here is really encourage people to start taking action on all things AI, because the future is here. The future is now.
Yeah.
It's happening rapidly. What are you most excited about with AI?
I think AI is a thought partner for all of us in whatever industry we're in. So whether you're trying to figure out what the strategy is for your company next year, or you're just trying to send a better email to a customer tomorrow, AI can help you do all of those things. It's an exciting resource for people in most any job. There's a lot of things that it will do, a lot of things that scare people, but I'm very optimistic about its ability to help people without disrupting us all that much. So we'll get into that a lot more, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that. I mean, for us, we're in this constant state of trying to move people, what we would say, from anxious to curious. Right? Yeah. I call myself AI serious. I don't need you to get all the way here. Right. But we do need to get people to start to accept AI. Right? It is a reality that is not going anywhere.
Right.
It is our hope that having you as a guest, we can start to move people through that spectrum again, from anxious to curious.
I hope so too.
You got a question?
Go ahead, Erica. What's our question for today?
I've got so many questions for Dan. And so I subscribe to be more AI curious, right? I'm not the techie guru that you two tech geniuses are. So I'm a little more like teetering on that anxious, curious spot.
Okay.
What would you say to people who are in positions like me? We know we need to embrace it. We know it's the future, but there is so much AI out there. We don't know where to start.
Yeah. So for sure, my first action for you is just start playing around with something a little bit. Just familiarize yourself with what's possible. ChatGPT is the most common one. A lot of people have heard of it. It's also probably the best of them out there. There's a free version. So if you haven't done anything yet, at least just go to chatgpt.com and start asking it some questions. If you're trying to figure out what to make for dinner tonight, ask it what to make for dinner tonight. Say, I have some chicken and a tomato and an onion. What should I make for dinner? And see what its answer is, because its answers are pretty amazing. And then start asking it harder questions and just kick the tires, like figure out what's possible, what works for you, and familiarize yourself with it a little bit more.
ChatGPT is primarily the one that I am the most familiar with and that I use. And it's my understanding. So you've got the free version, you've got the paid version, and then you even have Pro. Okay. So I know From free to pro, what's really beneficial there is it remembers a lot more about you and you can train it. Yes?
That's mostly true, but the bigger differences between Pro and the normal versions is something called deep research. Right, deep research is a new functionality that just came out about 3 weeks ago. Yep. That really digs into a topic, and it'll give you, I used to work at McKinsey and Company, and it will give you a consultant level report on any topic. It's kind of bonkers. So, deep research is one of the pro features. Sora, which is a video generation thing, is also one of the pro features. And there's some other things too, but those are the two big differences. The other thing is it's changing all the time. So while the free version has some basic stuff and it's really great, the pro version has more newer stuff, but it'll keep changing. And the free version will just give you the stuff that came out 5 months ago instead.
Yes.
I think that's the big takeaway for me, or two big takeaways, right? I use the pro version quite a bit, right? So I use the Sora piece as well, but I really love the deep research. To your point, I tell people all the time, I say, as a consultant, I wish I had this 10, 15 years ago. I feel like, I always use the analogy that I feel like Captain America with his shield or Thor with his hammer when I'm using deep research. And it's, to your point, the folks that want to use, you should try it out and use just the 4.0, right? The quick version, you get some answers back and things like that. But as you start to get into the pro and the deep research, and they got 0.1 and they got 0.3 mini, 0.3 high. The other piece to Dan's point, over time, you'll get those as well. It's more of a, if you pay for the $20 a month, I pay the $200 a month, right? For all of the features, because I'm playing around trying to understand how they work. So it is very exciting. The other thing I would say too, though, just as a follow-up, it's not just ask it a couple of questions, have a conversation with it, right? It's back and forth. This is not, a Google search here.
Right.
This is, you're having a thought partner in real time. So love it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just search, right? With Google search for the last 20 years, we went there, we typed some, 4 or 5 words in the search box and it gives us an answer and then we're done. We either like the answer that we get or we don't. With any of the AI tools, I think you'll be a lot more successful if you gradually ask it your question, right? Give it your initial 4 or 5 words or 35 words if you really like prompt engineering. But after you get an answer, say, what could I have done to make this a better question? Or what else should I be thinking about that I'm not thinking about? And keep giving it a little bit more information about what you like and what you don't like. And it will give you a better and better answer. It'll learn from your style or learn from what's interesting to you. Just like you were saying, the newer, more premium versions will remember more stuff about your context. The context in your head is there's a lot of it up there, right? And AI doesn't know those things unless you have an ongoing conversation about what you're thinking.
Yes. And it really almost is kind of like a human in the way I interact with it, because there was one day I remember she was not giving me what I wanted. And I was just getting so mad at her. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come back tomorrow with this. And I came back the next day. I was like, we both had a good night's sleep and I got the answer that I wanted. But you said something and I just had this light bulb moment of like, how is this going to change the educational industry? Mm. And that was, you said prompt engineering. And I immediately was like, oh my God, that's a college course. That will be an entire college course at some point.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to cut you off here. Like on that topic, first of all, she gendered her AI, which I thought was interesting. That was, we just kind of breezed right past that part.
Y'all listen, it's a woman because she knows all these things. So she's smart, okay?
That's fair.
But to your point though, one on the conversational piece, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and I was like, I was having this conversation, and someone said this, and then in that moment, I realized, oh shit, I was talking to AI the whole time. It's like it wasn't an actual person. So does that make it me, or does it make it she, or whomever my AI? So that's thing one. So as you start to have the conversation, you start to lose some reality as it relates to, did I have a real conversation or an AI conversation?
Yeah.
The other part is the education, right? I'm glad you brought that up. The prompt engineering. Yeah. I remember a few years ago, people were talking about it was going to be the next big thing. And then I was reading a Harvard Business Journal article from 2023 a couple months back, and they were saying, no, prompt engineering is not going to be a big thing. But I got to say, man, I don't know. My prompt engineering, if you understand how to actually prompt,
right.
The average, I was reading something, the average AI search was 22 words. The average Google search was 4 words.
Yeah.
Right. So if that gives you any kind of indication. So anyway.
Yeah, I think I go back and forth on prompt engineering because I agree with you. If you're only typing 4 words into a ChatGPT prompt, you're probably not going to get the answer that you're looking for. You're going to have to keep going back and forth. It's going to give you things that you're not hoping for. 22 words is a better prompt for sure. But what I worry about sometimes is people that type way too much information. They're sometimes filtering answers out of the results accidentally by saying something that like misleads the AI into a direction that you actually don't want. And so what I would rather have people do is say, instead of typing a whole, dissertation on what you actually want from AI, ask it a shorter question, but say, give me 10 answers to this question, and then scan those answers and pick the one that's best for you. That way, you're not actually trying to describe to AI all the things in your head, because there's trillions of things in your head, right? And no matter how good you get at prompt engineering, you'll never give it all the context. Instead of doing that, just ask it for multiple answers, and then just like we do with Google search, scan the list and pick the one that's best for you. And then if there's one in there that's kind of close, ask it more about that one. Say like number 7 on this list is pretty good, but I was actually thinking something more along these lines, and it'll get better. So use multiple options as the answer as a way to narrow in without creating a 500 word dissertation on what you're trying.
So you're not a big fan of the one-shot prompt.
Yeah, I think you're missing the fact that it's built for chat, 100%. Right? It's built to have a dialogue with you about what you're thinking, and there's so much context in your head about what you heard last night, or what TV show you saw, or what you had for breakfast. Like, all those things influence your decisions, and ChatGPT doesn't know any of those things. Right. And so the longer the conversation is, the better your results will be.
I spent 15 hours talking to Chat and Gemini a few weekends ago, going back and forth. In one context window, I was going back and forth. Yeah. And to your point, there are times in which you could lead the witness, if you will. Right. I think, what do they call that? The probably messing this up, like the Polanyi paradox, where basically humans know more than we can tell.
Right.
So the point of it is, like, when you ask a human how to ride a bike, there's a way more steps that actually go into it versus what we can actually articulate. Right.
Yeah,
and the more, to your point, if you give it too much context, it's going to mislead, because, to your point, it doesn't really know. Right. You're providing the context, and it is simply responding to the context that was given. If you give it too much or the wrong type of context, then you're going to get something back, versus what you're talking about, more like what do they call it, kind of chain of thought, or you're going to have more of a conversation back and forth to then refine.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking of it like, if you're a leader and you're explaining something to someone on your team, you've got to give enough information, but you also have to leave room for ambiguity for them to step up to the plate. And that's kind of how I see my relationship with ChatGPT.
Yeah. And I think another thing for people that are on like agencies of some kind, like a design agency or a ad agency or any kind of service agency, a customer tells you what they want, and then you make your first attempt, your draft, you give it to them, and they say, that's pretty close, but I don't like this, and I was hoping for this. And you go back and forth with that client. Any client that just filled out a design brief and then you just did the work and gave it back to them would hate the work that you did for them. Like, they need the dialogue. It's part of the creative process. And so AI is like that too.
We had Lauren Greif on our podcast a few weeks ago, and she had this amazing 5C framework where she talked about creativity, connectedness, and all of these things that when we think of AI and from the fear standpoint, like what it's going to take away, it was such a hopeful glimpse that, like, it can't take away the connectedness. It can't take away the creativity and the things like that. And for me, that really grounded me in the fact of, like, there is so much human that still needs to be involved.
So I'm glad you brought up creativity, because creativity is one of those words that we say a lot, but we It actually means two different things, and we sort of blur them together when we talk about it, and AI is going to pull them apart. When we say creativity, we usually mean like thinking of something new that wasn't there before, like imagining some new thing, right? And then we also mean picking the thing that we like the best. AI can imagine lots of cool new things. It can make you a million new pictures in a second, but it doesn't know the picture that you want, right? It's like the example I use sometimes is imagine an AI robot that makes dinner for you, right? AI can instantly pull any possible recipe together. It can even create new recipes that didn't exist before, but it doesn't know what you feel like having for dinner, right? It doesn't know what you had for lunch today. It doesn't know what you had yesterday. It doesn't know if you like spicy food or not. And sure, your prompt engineering can get better and better at giving it that info, but the creativity process is thinking of new things and then picking the one that you like. And AI won't ever pick the one you like better than you. And so that's, I think, an important part when people think about AI and creativity and the whole process.
I mean, that was pretty mind-blowing. Like, I never really thought about the separation of those things. I will say that what I always try to tell folks is that AI provides you with speed and optionality.
Yeah.
Right, to that point, right? You can't, the taste is so subjective, right? And, what you enjoy, what you like. But imagine being able to your point, get 5 different recipes.
Yeah.
Right now, I can choose which one I like. Right, and if you think about that in kind of in a marketing world, for example, the idea now that you're going to just give a client or give your stakeholder one option for anything,
right,
that has gone away.
Right.
Because and I've seen that in real time when they say, all right, well, what are the other two? Which other two? And it's not just for a design. It's even for, it could be a press release. It can be copywriting. It could be anything. Right. It could be videos. And it's like, hey, right now I play around with Suno and make music sometimes. And it automatically gives you 2 examples of whatever song. I shared a few with Erica a few weeks ago. I was like, why don't we use this for the song? Yeah. I don't think she liked them, but.
Well, let's be clear. I was just expecting a little 30-second snippet of something, and I got a whole song about Greg and Erica. So
that's amazing. It
was incredible. I was dying.
There was a pop version, and then there was a trap hip hop version.
That's right.
So
nice.
Yeah,
we like a little variety in our lives. But Dan, I kind of want to shift on you here because I want to take a left turn because I work with a lot of leaders who they run their own businesses or they're in these positions of power. And they're watching AI really race towards them. And they know they need to do something about it. They know it's going to impact their business, but it's almost like this analysis paralysis. They don't know what to do, what to look at first. What would you advise people in those positions to do?
So first, I think realize that you probably already have a lot more AI than you realize, right? There was a moment, it was November of 2022. ChatGPT came out. That's the month when ChatGPT came out. And if you were in school in November of 2022, all of a sudden everyone said, hey, if you put your homework into ChatGPT, you'll get answers back like in seconds. If you were in school in November 2022, ChatGPT is part of your life every single day. You're never sending an email. You're never writing a document without ChatGPT helping you. And so whatever age that is right now, 24 or something, right, and younger, those people are using ChatGPT. Whether it's blocked on your network or not, they're using it. And so you probably have a lot more ChatGPT going on than you realize. And so have some open discussions about it. Like start talking about what it's good at, what it's not good at. Some of the newer people on your team are the people that are most informed about what's possible and what's not. And so start having an open dialogue so you can figure out how it can change your business. And then secondly, go into ChatGPT and ask it how it might change your business because it's going to give you pretty great answers.
Look at that.
Hey, I mean, those are 2 great points, right? I was at an event several weeks back, and Dr. Michael Jabor from Microsoft was speaking, and he showed a stat. He said, I hope there's no CISOs or security officers in this audience. He said, but 78% of the workforce brings their own AI to work every day.
Yeah.
He said, so whether you blocked it or not is irrelevant.
Right.
It is being used right now.
Yeah.
And one of the other things the piggyback of what you just said is I also tell folks all the time, ask it to that point. It's like, put in your role.
Right.
Ask it how it can help you.
Yeah.
And you will be amazed at the things that will come back. I said, but first, to your point, you have to try something. I think the big point for a lot of folks is that they feel it's just, I would say, stop thinking about artificial intelligence. That sounds like a very technical word. Yeah. Just call it augmented or assisted intelligence. Right. Yeah. Now we all have a PhD in our pocket. Right. Just understand it. And so doesn't everybody want that democratized intelligence? Like, or should you want that? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So, some people are a little nervous about it because it's democratizing intelligence. Right. And so some of the people that felt like, well, wait, no, I'm the expert. That's not as valuable as it used to be 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I have to put my HR hat on here. We have to add a third step to Dan's steps here, and that is get with your chief human resource officer and get some policies in place on how you can use it. Yep. Because if there are no policies about how you can use it within your company, it's the wild, wild west, right?
Yep.
And even ask it what the policies should be. People already have it done, so work smarter, not harder, but add that human element back in.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also, when you're creating a policy, whether it's for security or for culture or whatever you're trying to put in place, one of the most important things to put in place is how often you're going to review those policies and update them. Because it's changing every week, right? And so if you put a policy into place and expect that to still be the policy in November of 2025, it's going to be out of date. So have at least a quarterly review process where you're taking a look at what's changed and figuring out what's still in place and what needs to be revised.
Yeah.
So Dan, so you and I both have worked in digital transformation for years, right? Yeah. And off camera, we were having a conversation about the parallels, right? Yeah. And so what type of advice would you give or parallels to folks that have gone through multiple digital transformations? One, how is this different? And two, potentially, could this be faster, right? Because that's the problem a lot of times with folks. Yeah. So what's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, I think so. AI is just the new digital transformation, right? It's the new technology that we're all trying to adopt now. And, 15 years ago was web or mobile or something like that. The first thing is most digital transformations go poorly, right? Lots of studies have shown that 70 or 80% of digital transformations are, negatively reviewed. They either completely failed or they're still going on. They spent too much money. And one of the reasons for that is the word digital is a pretty ambiguous umbrella term. It means a lot of stuff in the world. And AI also is a big umbrella term, right? It might mean having a chatbot on your website for customers to ask questions. It might mean some super scientific machine learning camera scanning thing. Right. And those are very different. And so as you're tackling an AI transition of any kind, start getting more specific. Are you talking about like email optimization for your sales team? Are you talking about a customer service chatbot? Are you talking about a strategy assistant for some of your leaders that are trying to figure out what the strategy is? All those things are different transitions. All of those things will have different timelines, have different budgets and different risk. And so as you get more specific about the kinds of AI things you're going to employ, you'll be a little bit more pleased with how they go because your team will understand what we're trying to do right now and what we're not trying to do right now. And that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, I try to tell folks all the time, like, I have a computer science background. Yeah. So a lot of times when I'm listening to other podcasts or reading and things, I feel like, okay, you're speaking to me, but I'm not the majority, right? This thing is impacting, different than historical digital transformations that are targeted to different groups or different industries or different departments. This is pervasive, right, across the entire organization. So what we are trying to do is figure out how do we help folks that are in non-technical roles, right, embrace it, and how do you create enough inertia with the entire group? Because right now I have a lot of conversations about AI agents and super automation and workflows, and I was like, wait a minute, let's take a step back. the person in HR, the person in operations, and the sales folks, they don't even know or understand what any of that means.
Right.
Case in point. That's why I'm here, right? Because he has the computer science background. I have the people background. Right. And that's why we say he's AI serious and AI curious over here. And one of the ways I first started using it, and this was really fun, is, being in HR, you get dumped on a lot. You get the complaints. Nobody calls HR when things are going really well.
Right.
And sometimes you just get so fed up and you want to write this email back where you just tell them what's up, right? But you can't. Because you're the chief people officer.
Right.
So I'd take exactly what I thought, what I felt, and I'd put it into ChatGPT and I would say, but please make this professional so I don't get fired. And then in seconds, it would spit me back this beautiful email that before I would have to send it to someone else on my team, explain the situation and say, but read me for being a bitch.
Right. Or you would write it and then you would spend like 3 days like thinking about it and looking at it again and trying to decide if you should send it or not. Like you just put it in ChatGPT and it will help you, right?
Yes.
It will help you.
Yes. And in my coaching practice, I can't tell you how often I talk about take that exact thought and finesse it with ChatGPT.
Right.
And sometimes, Dan, it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not giving them this great advice. Like it should be coming from me. I should have it. And I'm like, but I would have just plugged it into ChatGPT too.
Right. And it's like, if you wrote an email and spell check underlined a bunch of your words with a little red squiggly line and you ignored them, that would be irresponsible of you, right? It's there to help you. And ChatGPT is that same thing. It's going to help you not just fix the misspelled words, but make it better, make it more equitable so that everybody understands, so that other perspectives are being considered in what you're writing. Like all of those things are the perspectives that ChatGPT will factor into what you're trying to write. And so just like ignoring a bunch of misspelled words, you should use ChatGPT every time. It will make it better. And it's almost irresponsible to not use it.
I wouldn't even say it's almost. I was 100% irresponsible. I was like, one of the phenomenons right now is that I hear all these people say like, hey, now that I've been using all these large language models, I actually communicate better with other humans. And you start to realize like, oh shit, in Slack and these other things, I've been pretty disrespectful on how I communicate with other humans. And it's also weird if you say please and thank you a lot of times to these large language models, you get better results. They're trained on.
That's amazing. And it's weird, like you're sitting there talking to a chatbot, you know it's a chatbot, and you still say thanks. That's weird. But like you never said that to Google. Like you never went back into your Google search results and said, thanks, those responses are great. And
because Google's like HR, we just get all dumped on.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Dan, when you think about all the different industries and roles that are out there, right? Which ones do you think are going to be most positively impacted by this rapid AI transformation, and which ones do you think are going to be most negatively impacted?
So mostly, I don't think very many industries are going to be negatively impacted. I don't think that's a widespread held belief, but I do think there are some things that AI just isn't going to be good at ever, and that's problem solving, and we can talk about that more, making decisions for you, and imagining a newer and better world. Right. And those are three things that AI can't do because it's not in the training data. Next Monday, when you go back to work, you're going to have some weird new problem that never happened before. And if it never happened before, it's not in the training data. And so your job is going to be problem solving, right? Making decisions like we talked about before with design and figuring out what to cook for dinner. You have so much context in your head. You have to make the decisions. And then finally, imagining a newer and better world, that AI only knows what the last 20 years were like. It can't know like what you hope about next year. And so those are the three things that become our job going forward, right? Other things besides that, like processing the widgets, right? Doing that repetitive thing that's on your to-do list or in your job description, those things will start to go away, but there's always going to be problem solving and decision making and imagining the future, regardless of what your job is.
All right. So I have a contrarian view on some parts of that.
But before you say that, I got to say this, right?
Go ahead.
What the whole point of this podcast is to really move people towards embracing and accepting AI.
Yes.
And if what Dan just said over here about imagining a better world does not give you the warm and fuzzies, and like actually it really removes that whole robotic feel,
100%.
then I don't know what does.
I 100% agree. And I think I was reading something, I think it was from the World Economic Forum, about in 2030, they're expecting net positive 90 million jobs, right?
Yeah.
And they're not saying there's still going to be displacement and things. My view is that in the very short term, there's going to be an extinction level event for SMB and mid-market companies, not because directly of how people are using AI. This is a consumer behavior and experience change that people are going to have to navigate.
So I'll challenge the SMB hypothesis a little bit. I think that small and medium businesses are going to be a little bit more adaptable than the massive big ones with lots of committees trying to make all the decisions.
Fingers crossed, man. That's my hope.
Right. I think small and medium businesses are going to adapt more. They'll pay attention to the market more. They have less at risk because they can try new things without like putting their 45-year-old business model at risk. I think that some of the small and medium businesses are going to be maybe more agile in navigating this change than some of the bigger ones. I worry about I was at McKinsey and Company and they'll probably be fine, but like they're a 100-year-old company with like bureaucratic,
Red
practices, tons of risk. Like they're in the news all the time already. Like what happens if they make an AI mistake? Like those kinds of companies are the ones I worry about, right?
Yeah, I was reading something interesting and funny at the same time. It was like a week ago. There was someone posting, some of the earnings from Accenture or some group, and they were like, "Oh, Accenture had 69,000 folks that were billing on Gen AI related things." They're like, "Oh, cool, 69,000 people that don't know Gen AI." Because, but what the point they were trying to make is that the McKinseys, the PwCs, the Accentures, that's where people are turning, regardless of whether they have the experience or not, because they have the consulting experience, right? And that's one of the things that folks just don't know where to start right now. And so from a consultative perspective, I think to your point, in the short term, they will be okay because that's where people are turning. But I also agree. I basically have McKinsey PhD in my pocket now. So from a strategic perspective, just the SMB piece, which is a weird phenomenon, is like depending on the industries that you're in. Like when I've actually seen folks in trucking and roofing and other trade types of organizations that have already started to embrace AI. What I'm seeing more pushback though are creative tech teams. I mean, I had a conversation with a young engineer last week, and they asked me, "Should I stop, writing code? Should I stop being in this space?" I'm like, it's like no, but you could really accelerate it. They just dropped Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and developers are raving about it. But it's like more senior developers are raving about it because now all the baseline code into our earlier conversation about creativity, right? They're like, hey, I can stack on top of this. I don't have to start from scratch, right? And that's the part. It's just, I worry about, it's just this weird, I have my own thesis as to why people are pushing back. Sorry to be long-winded about it, but
that's good.
My thesis is this is the first time I have a computer science background. I've been in digital marketing for a long time as well. This is our first time in our career where someone that wasn't us is telling us how to be more productive. And people ain't liking it.
Right.
Same with creativity though, right? It's the first time,
it's the first time ever. It's
and
like,
I had the same conversation with somebody who was a founder of a creative agency, and I was working with her. And I was talking about how I was using AI, and she's like, I refuse to try it. She's like, because it takes away from my creative process. And I just couldn't believe that was the mindset of a CEO founder. Because I've seen the creativity it can produce, right? So, I mean, with that question, Dan, I would say, like, what kind of advice would you give that bullheaded kind of person?
So first, the market will fix that problem for her. Right.
I love how you said that because I agree with that.
Right. like ultimately the people that are using AI to accelerate what they do, to give them more options, to create more options for their customers and stakeholders, those people will start doing better work faster. And the people that are still trying to do it the old way are going to just be slower and they're not going to be as good. And so eventually those people's customers will help them make a better
extinction
decision.
level event. And that is my that is my, and that's why I use that phrase, Dan, for that purpose. Of like, if you decide, I was telling a group of folks the other day, I said it's more likely than not by the end of this year, all hiring managers are going to be asking which AI tools are you using to be more productive. And the idea that you're going to get away by saying, I'm not using it, they're like, okay, interesting. So you're slow, right, and stubborn. No, thanks.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But also, just to make sure we're not freaking people out, that extinction level event will be long and slow and not a light switch, right?
So you'll feel it coming is what you're telling me.
You're going to start failing to keep up with some of the peers and stakeholders around you. And so you're going to start falling behind, and you're going to start realizing, oh, it's because those people are using this other thing that I'm not using. And you won't just all of a sudden one day be fired, right? You're just going to start realizing that, oh, the thing I'm trying to do is harder for me than some of the people around me. And so you'll sort of get pulled along whether you want to or not. Just like, you know, when people got mobile phones for the first time, like some of them were like, well, I'm not at work. I left my phone on my desk at work. Like, you stop doing that after a little while. And some of that is bad, right? Because we started taking work home with us. But also, like, we just learned how mobile fits in our life. And now there are a lot of things that we like about having a phone with us all the time, too. And AI will be just like that.
And to bring it full circle, that brings you back to a problem-solving moment. If you always have your phone with you and at work, what is that next problem that you need to solve?
Right.
So I love a good full circle moment here.
Yes, exactly.
I love it.
Amazing.
The parallel I always use with folks on that, to Dan's point, I say, I live in a neighborhood with a lot of folks that are retired, and pre-pandemic, they were like, I would never use Instacart. I would never use Amazon Delivery, right? Until early 2020, people couldn't get their toilet paper. And then everybody started, going to Amazon and e-commerce and Instacart and all these things. And then guess what happened when the stores opened back up? All my neighbors, I see Amazon, Instacart. I got neighbors now that their dry cleaning comes to their door. That once they realize, and we haven't talked about this yet, but once it flips that time equation so you can focus on the things you wanted to do instead of the drive or the commute from an e-commerce perspective, but from an AI, I always tell them it's about flipping the time equation. You spend so much if your creative process, to use your analogy from earlier, if your creative process is 70% preparation, right? Imagine I would never cook dinner if 70, 80% of the time was me just preparing to cook the dinner. Right. So why would I do this when it comes to any other thing I would do?
Yeah. Completely agree. I think that time equation is super important. Like the amount of time we spend trying to figure out how to do the thing that we're actually trying to do for our customers is not in the right proportion right now, right? And creating more value for your customers is the most important thing, regardless of the business that you have. And we spend too much time like figuring out what to do and getting the information that we need in order to do that thing and talking about the thing in meetings and emails and chat. And like all that stuff is getting in the way of actually doing stuff for our customers. And AI is going to start streamlining some of that.
I just read a stat that said to that exact point that up to 65% of our time is spent on gathering information to do our job. 65% of our time in a 40-hour work week is finding the thing to do our work.
Right. And that's 1.5 billion hours a week just in the US, right? 60 million knowledge workers spending 65% of their time is 1.5 billion hours every week. If we could just make that 1% better, like it would be massively, massively impactful.
Oh my gosh. All right, I got a question. We've talked a lot about ChatGPT. We've talked a little bit about Sora. What should professionals and leaders be looking at from an AI tool perspective that will help them with their workflows, their productivity, and their ideation outside of those two?
I think right now we're in this world where they're all changing all the time. And really my advice for most leaders is just play around with some of them so that you're familiarizing yourself with what's possible. Ultimately, what I find with my own use is that there are different tools that are better for different things, right? Like ChatGPT is great as a knowledge assistant. If I have a question about the trucking industry or the advertising industry or healthcare, I'm going to go to ChatGPT because the answers I get back are probably going to be better. But I'm also writing a book. If I want help on the structure of my book, like fixing the table of contents, making sure it makes sense, I'm going to go to Claude because Claude's privacy policy is a little bit better, right? And I go to ChatGPT and some of that information is now like in the ether, right? Other people can Google it and my book isn't even out yet. And that's not as good as a thought leader. So Claude is a little bit more private. ChatGPT is a little bit more knowledgeable. Gemini has some other, Gemini's the one from Google. Gemini is better at images and text together at once, right? So if you're on vacation in France and you don't speak French, you'll be able to hold your phone up to some sign in France and Google's Gemini will tell you what that sign says and what you should do about it and how to get directions on the train and stuff like that. So they're all different and just play around with them at this point.
See, I had to put the shades on because he just got real AI serious just now, right? You see, he started going through the models. And in my mind, I was like, when he started talking about writing the book, I said, I guarantee he's about to say Claude, right? Because Claude is a much better writer, so folks will, constantly rave about Claude. And now with the new one, 3.7 Sonnet, people are talking about for writing code. The one thing I would say too about Gemini, right? I love your take on it being multimodal with video and text and everything else. But it's also, if you're in an organization that's in Google Workspace, right? It's tied in directly to your Gmail, to your G Drive. So the use cases and your ability to, go mine everything that's in my G Drive, go organize it for me, tell me blah, 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 drop PDFs in there. So those types of connections I've seen. I also use Notebook LM to coalesce a lot of things. Right. And you can create mock podcasts, study guides, all these other things. So it was cool. I think, it does really depend on the use case. But I always tell folks, I'm like, the same thing that Dan said, like at a base level, just pick one or two. Right. They're not so radically different for the average user. Right.
Yeah.
Either pick ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini. They still predominantly have the base kind of same functionality for the average user. I'll use different use cases for different things, but I would start there. Again, if you're a Google shop too in your company and it's already tied to your G Space, they do have some pretty decent, I would say kind of license and kind of confidentiality based on how at least they say they're not training off your data, right? But if you're using the free version, as they always say, then if it's free, then you're the product. Right. So.
Since you brought up the Google Workspace and the Google AI tools, for people that aren't on Google, for people that are on the Microsoft stack, Copilot on the Microsoft stack is similar. If you're already using Microsoft Teams for your meetings and your email and Outlook and all that stuff, you're going to find Copilot built into all of the Microsoft tools that you're already using. And Copilot is really just, at this point, Copilot is just a wrapper around ChatGPT, 100%. Right? So they created a partnership with Microsoft to get it off the ground. They used Microsoft servers to train ChatGPT at the beginning. And so Microsoft gets to put ChatGPT in all of their products while Microsoft is working on building their own. So at some point, a year from now or 3 years from now, Copilot will still exist. It just won't be ChatGPT anymore. But Microsoft is going to bring a lot of like enterprise privacy and security and data storage things to the AI equation that will be helpful for enterprises that are already using the Microsoft stack.
And they're racing pretty fast on the quantum computing as well, based on some things that were just released, right? So they are trying to, they're playing in a game of chess right now when everyone else is playing checkers. The goal is get to AGI and get to quantum computing. Well, I don't know if goal is the right word, but we're going to get there at some point where the machines are going to be much smarter than the humans. And So,
all right, you're going to have to break down quantum computing for the AI curious over here.
That's for a different episode.
That's the next episode. All right.
Right.
My word. Dan.
Yes.
What is the one action that leaders should take in the next 24 hours?
24 hours. That's all you got.
That's all you got to move the needle with AI.
Go to ChatGPT and say, what should I do in the next 24 hours to move the needle on AI? No one's going to be better.
That is an AI guru.
What a brilliant answer.
That is an AI guru.
What a brilliant answer. He's like, I don't even got to tell you.
Yeah, no one's going to be better at answering that question than AI. It knows all the things it can do. So just ask it.
Dan, where can we find you if we want to learn more about you?
Right. So I'm Dan Chuparkoff. I'm pretty easy to find on the internet. I have a pretty unique last name. It's Chu, C-H-U, park like a car and off like a switch. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you are. And I'd love to start a conversation with you about all these topics. And so it's not just this one podcast. It's the next decade of AI transformations for all of us.
Absolutely. And Dan is speaking on stages all across the globe. So follow him on those socials because you just might be in the same city where he's talking next.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Perfect ending. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here today in the studio. It was an incredible conversation.
Thanks for having me. It was fun for me too. So let me know if I can ever be helpful in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for joining us on AI, Voice or Victim. If you want to stay competitive in the AI age, start now. Take one insight from today's episode and put it into practice in the next 24 hours. Make sure to follow us, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more actionable AI insights. See you next time.